you can listen the class. Who is this lady? This lady was the Norwegian Prime Minister, Gro Harlem Brundtland. And she was the leader of the Commission of the United Nations that wrote this report. But the story starts well in advance, at least at the beginning of the 70s. There were many environmental movements, and the concerns about nature became very popular. In the 72, the first conference on the human environment was held in Stockholm. And in 92 was Rio in Brazil. The same type of conferences. And with this conference, the program UNEP started. So it's the United Nations Environment Program. And so from 1983 to 1986, the Brundtland Commission worked at this report that we'll read together. We had in 92 the Rio Hard Summit in Brazil, and then 2002 Johannesburg, 2012 Rio plus 30, and we had so many conferences. And we will read now some passages from the report Our Common Future, which is the report from the Brundtland Commission. And the purpose was address the concern about the accelerating deterioration of the human environment and natural resources, and the effects of that deterioration. This was the goal of the Commission for economic and social development. And the General Assembly of the United Nations recognized the importance of the environmental problems. Environmental problems are global in nature. And to address them is common interest of all nations. And I put in red some words. Why? And the reason is that we always had environmental pollution in human history. We had very old cases, very well documented, of very strong pollution. But all these cases were very local. So what has changed today is that environmental problems are global, not as in the past, where we had, for instance, if you think to London at the end of the 19th century, with all this smog problem and so on, or we had, so it was a big problem, but it was localized in one big town. It was a serious problem, but was not a global problem. So the first is, because sometimes people say, oh, we always had environmental pollution. And of course, it's common interest of all nations. You know this definition. I think you know this definition. What is sustainable development? It is a development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. What can you read from that? Where is the stress from this definition? Now, and what is commonly said about sustainable development? How it is read, this definition? What does impress you of this definition? If you read this definition, and then I ask you, what is about sustainable development? A problem with this definition is that everyone stresses future generations. Greta Thunberg stresses future generation, her children. True. Okay? Everyone, when they talk about sustainable development, talk about future generation without compromising the ability of future generation. And this is very dangerous because it is as something that comes in the future. And the future is never there. We have to care about our environment, otherwise our children. Otherwise our children. You are our children. And actually, if you read, and this is why I insist a lot about reading. If you read Our Common Future, everything is about, not everything, a very important part of it is not about future generation, but about the needs of the present generation. In Our Common Future, and the future is also in the title, we have two types of justice. One is the justice equity for future generation, worries for future generation, and this is intergenerational equity. I will write here. Intergenerational. Justice, intergenerational justice or equity. But it is also very important in the report, intra-generational justice. That is, they divide north-south. Okay? And actually, it is very impressive how the discourse can be changed by media or by misreading the report. Because if you look at the report, okay, this is contained in the report, this definition. But if you read the report, you understand how much stress is put on intra-generational justice. But as a political discourse, it didn't pass. We have this definition, we care about future generation. We need to care about future generation. Yes, but we need to care about also present generation. And this is why, so if you go to this web page, you will find all the documents of our common future. And in particular, as you can see, here, O2. This is chapter 2. And of course, there is O1, chapter 1, and so on. And you can find there the book, the report. which was also printed as a book. You can find a book, you can buy a book, but you can read it online for free. And so we can have, so this is chapter 2, the concept of sustainable development, equity and the common interest, and the strategic imperatives. You need to know this well for the exam. Because this is, what is the name of this class? What is the name of this class? Principles of Sustainable Development. So we need to know about sustainable development as a first. So sustainable development is development, we already read that, okay? Meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. It contains within it two key concepts. The concept of needs. Okay? Concept of needs. In particular, the essential needs of the world's poor, to which overriding priority should be given. As one of your classmates said, important word is needs. Most of you comes from economics. Do we have needs in economics? Do we have needs in economics? Yes or no? In economic theory, is the concept of needs present in economic theory? Do we have or not? Yes, in which sense?
Every economics has needs.
Not in the economy, but in
people
economic theory.
or-
In economic theory.
Okay.
Think to economic theory. What do we have? We have preferences. We don't have needs anymore. It's true? We have preferences. Preference ordering, an order of preference, and so on. And the reason is that needs is objective, somehow objective. But according to the liberal thought, people are free, consumer is sovereign, and so we cannot think about needs, but we need to talk about preferences in economics. Now we have what is that? What am I drawing? So you have x1, x2. What is that? U0, U1, U2. How do we model consumers? We have preferences. We can represent preference with utility. And consumers maximize their utility within the, what is that? What is the green line? This one? What is that? The budget constraint. Okay? Income, for instance, money is equal price of good one times quantity of good one, plus price of good 2 times quantity of good 2. Is everyone with me? Is this what is taught in a basic microeconomic course? Is it? In economic theory, we don't have any more needs. We had in the past. Now we don't talk about needs. Maybe we talk about essential goods. Elasticity is very low. Elasticity with respect to price. If the elasticity with respect to price is very low, then those are needed goods and necessary or whatever. Okay? But usually we don't think about needs because everything is subjective. What is a need for her is not a need for him, or vice versa. Maybe for him this is needed and for her is not needed. Freedom. But this is, from a point of view, very good, but from another point of view, very bad. Because actually, in real life, there are needs. Maybe in different society, we have different needs. What is a need in France is not a need in Spain. But still, this does not mean that we don't have, that we cannot define the concept of need. The concept of need, then you can have a look to this, which is interesting. If you have a look to Georgescu region, Georgescu region, he was used to distinguish between two concepts. One concepts are arithmomorphic. I will write here. So we have arithmomorphic. There is a sorry. So in economics, we have preferences. We don't have any more needs. We were telling that we can have needs, even if needs are not so precise concept. We cannot define very well needs. But as Georgescu region was saying, he was used to distinguish between something like that. I don't know why it's not connected. Sorry. Arithmomorphic, I hope the spelling is right. It means similar to arithmetics, similar to mathematics, in the same shape of mathematics. Okay? So there are precise concepts that we can define. Okay? The mass, or a length, the length of the table. But then we have dialectic. Dialectic concepts. So, concept that we cannot define very precisely. For instance, what is democracy? Can we have a precise definition of democracy? What is justice? Can we have a precise definition of justice? No. But still, we cannot say that justice doesn't exist because we cannot define it in a way similar to the mathematics. Is it clear? Justice. What is justice? For her, justice is something, for her is something different, and for her is something different. But still, we can discuss, we can have a debate of what justice is, and justice is a concept, a vague concept, but still it exists, okay? And so we can debate about needs, and needs are not a precise concept. We cannot define it in a mathematical way, but still needs exist, okay? And as we, so in the Brundtland report, as you can see, the word needs is emphasized. Priority should be given to the essential needs of the world's poor. Okay? And future generation. But again, what can you read here? present and future generation. And again, we have the idea of limitations imposed by technology and social organization. It's the older discourse that freedom is also respecting others. We are not free of doing whatever we want. We just have to limit ourselves to respect others. So you can say nothing new. Thus, the goal of economic and social development must be defined in terms of sustainability in all countries, developed and developing, market-oriented or centrally planned. Interpretation will vary. Okay, this is very important, but must share certain general features and must flow from a consensus on the basic concept of sustainable development. We can discuss. In my opinion is this, and in my opinion is that, but at least there is a core. There must be a core about what sustainable development is and how to achieve it. Development. What is development and what is growth? Someone of you maybe has attended a course in economic development, the theory of economic development. Today, in many universities, what is taught is not development, but growth theory, economic growth theory, solo model, exogenous growth theory, endogenous growth theory. But of course, economic growth is not economic development. Now, you are told that this is development. It is not development. Development is not growth of GDP, but development is transformation. When a child becomes adolescent and then adult, we have development. The child becomes bigger, but it is not only that. Okay? So development, we read, involves a progressive transformation of economy and society. Of course, we have some association between GDP growth and development. Higher GDP levels are usually associated to a larger part of service economy rather than industry or agriculture and so on. But a development path that is sustainable in a physical sense could theoretically be pursued even in a rigid social and political setting. But physical sustainability cannot be secured unless development policies pay attention to such consideration as changes in access to resources and in the distribution of costs and benefits. So we are talking not about the present, not about the future, but both of present and future. But we are talking also about present. We are talking about access to resources by the poor. You can read something which is rather strong. If you think about multinational corporations, especially in the mining sector, the mining sector is very harmful for the poor, for population, for poor population living in the places where the mining activities are located. Okay? Even the narrow notion of physical sustainability implies concern for social equity between generations, intergenerational equity, a concern that must logically be extended to equity within each generation. Of course, it is much easier not to talk about intra-generation equity, that is, equity within the generation. It is much easier to talk about the future. Okay? And so this is why I insist a lot that it is important to read the original papers. Because, it's incredible, no? Just go back, no? And you read this. Of course, if you read this, it's only part of the story. Everyone says, meet the future generation, meet the needs of future generation. And this is very narrow view, very partial view. I look at her, and I only look at the hand, and nothing else. Of course, the hand is there, but there is something else. And so it is all in the same page. It is not verified. It's not very difficult to find it. It's not at page 474. You just go one sentence after the definition, and you find the concept of needs. No? And all countries, and you read all that. And you understand that sustainable development is not about present and future, but it is about justice in general. Okay? And you are told the fairy tale that sustainable development is about future. It's about your children. I was told it was about my children. You are told it's about your children. And it will be told that it's to your children that it's about their children. As if future never comes. Huh? You are betrayed. We have been betrayed. So, this satisfaction of human needs and aspiration is the major objective of development. The essential need of vast number of people in developing countries for food, clothing, shelter, jobs are not being met. And beyond their basic needs, these people have legitimate aspiration for improved quality of life. A world in which poverty and inequity are endemic will always be prone to ecological and other crises. Sustainable development requires meeting the basic needs of all and extending to all the opportunities to satisfy their aspiration for a better life. Living standards that go beyond the basic minimum are sustainable only if consumption standards everywhere have regard for long-term sustainability. Yet many of us live beyond the world's ecological means. So it's very critical against the Western countries' lifestyles. 83. I'm talking 83, 86. For instance, in our patterns of energy use, perceived needs are socially and culturally determined, and sustainable development requires the promotion of values that encourage consumption standards that are within the ecological possible, within the bounds of the ecological possible, and to which all can reasonably aspire. Can you read how strong this is this document, this sentence? Meeting essential needs, and this is the document. It's not that I am picking up what I like most. We are just reading the document. Okay, meeting essential needs depends in part on achieving full growth potential. And this is also why the Brundtland report was successful. Because it says that we need to have economic growth to meet the needs. Depends in part on achieving full growth potential, and sustainable development clearly requires economic growth, but be careful. In places where such needs are not being met. What does it mean, this sentence? What does this sentence mean? It means that we don't need growth in the UK. We don't need growth in the US. I'm not saying that. The Brundtland report is saying that. So, clearly requires economic growth in places where such needs are not being met. Elsewhere, it can be consistent with economic growth, provided the content of growth reflects the broad principle of sustainability and non-exploitation of others. For instance, through copper mining or gold mining, which has very big impact. But growth by itself is not enough. High levels of productive activity and widespread poverty can coexist. What is that? It is Gini index, inequality within a country. Within a country, you can have very rich people, very poor people. You have heard about the work by the French economist Piketty, who emphasized the issue of income distribution. He is now very famous because of his scientific work on income distribution. No? High levels of productive activity and widespread, so we already said, and can endanger the environment. Hence, sustainable development requires a society meet human needs, again needs, both by increasing productive potential and by ensuring equitable opportunities for all. Okay? You may not agree with that. That's fine. But the main message that passed is not about needs, is not about justice in overall terms. The main message, sustainable development is about meeting future generation needs. And this is false. This is not in the report. In the report, the report is about something else. It's also about future generation, but it's mostly about justice in general. Many people criticize the report because they say, it allows economic growth. This is not true. Because it allows economic growth provided the content of growth reflects the broad principle of sustainability and non-exploitation of others. It's constrained economic growth. Okay, so now we have many people praising the report, praising our common future, we should do as in the report and so on, but at the same time, they are against the degrowth movement. But the degrowth movement is about reducing the material size of the economy. It is about growth in rich countries. The degrowth movement just says that rich countries don't need to have strong economic growth, and we need to downsize the amount of matter that we use in our economy. We have to reduce the material size of our economy, of the economy of the rich countries. So you may be against the growth, but if you are against the growth, you have also to be against the Brundtland report. Okay? I'm not saying I am in favor or I'm against. You need to be consistent. More or less, they say almost the same thing. Okay? So it is important to use our brain and our capacity of reading and reasoning. Okay? And then, so we